Another dark log from the diary of a griever named John Weaver, which is me. What's going on, fellow zombies? It's still the 23rd of June 2026, Tuesday, counting down until it's going to be Wednesday. Can we talk? Yeah, the attire doesn't work too well, especially when I'm sleeping with it anyway. A reminder of myself on some of these shirts I get that they do have meaning. I was trying, speaking about meaning, getting the point about July 4th. Why it's so important that we keep celebrating this holiday every single year. And past couple of years, it's been slipping. Or shall I say about the past decade. When someone tries to wrap himself around a flag, trying to pretend that he's so patriotic, he wants to show people that he's American, he's patriotic, he's whatever kind of an influence or image he was trying to produce to people, and make cartoons about the son of a bitch. The same asshole we voted in back in 2016 and 2024. And he's doing everything he can to promote his birthday and July 4th at the same damn time. Hijacking everything. Destroying the White House in the process. Destroying the reflective font. Destroying monuments to put his effigy on everything. So it makes me wonder, what the hell were we doing with all this Revolutionary War and all these symbols getting thrashed because of one man's greed, ego, and avarice, not to mention hubris, going insane at this point. What the hell are we supposed to be doing about it? You got the number of 250 being pushed down our throats left and right. But not back to what it was supposed to be. A long time ago in our country was going for it. We have theatricals. We have books. We have testimonies of what happened back in those colonial days. We have history to teach us the text of it. But when we want to see dramatics, when we want to see visualizations, it's what we really wanted to see is reasons why we fight and the reasons why we have to keep fighting. And it doesn't matter which particular enemy. Even in the colonial days, they had fights among, not themselves, but they had the Native Americans. Some liked, others were despised. And there were turf wars on that one. Not to mention we had France and Spain, but we didn't fight Spain, not until in the West. But just on the colonial side, we had dealt with the English and the French. Mostly English at this point because most of the colonies were English, but there had been a few other colonies. One German, I think. Pennsylvania. Dutch. And they were the basis, they're being the basis of what our country was starting out as. We're just colonies trying to get our farms and cities built and towns, so we had communities going on. Maybe eventually have something of independence for the 13 colonies. Or maybe the 13 colonies wanted to be independent of each other. There was always discussion about that. But for them to unite against Britain, England at the time, who wanted more control, more money, using these guys as, you're providing us everything we need to rebuild our navies and our military. It's not the people, it's the materials that they needed, and the money. Money. How are they going to be making money? How are people supposed to be making money if you get taxed left and right? Tax forms left and right. I mean, they had taxing on everything. You wanted to buy something, there's a tax. You wanted to write something, there's a tax. You want to send something, there's a tax. You wanted to breathe, there's a tax right there. And the one food that became synonymous with the colonial war, or the start of it, Boston Tea Party. Different interpretations on this one, whether or not they were patriots or terrorists. But how long can you tax someone's tea, their favorite drink, to a point where they're saying, that's it, no more. Sending a message over. We sent correspondence for weeks and months and nobody didn't do a damn shit. So what do? Knock over a couple of merchant ships, loaded with tea, poured it into the waters. In the 50s and 60s, when they actually had the television shows coming out, including Walt Disney. All Walt was making the Wonderful World of Disney, a lot of action-based series going on, and they had movies coming out of Buena Vista Industries. Buena Vista was the name for their film production, their television and film production. I grew up under it. Sundays were was the Wonderful World of Disney. I'd watched it for years. I'd watched all these nature shows happening, but I also watched the adventure shows. They were exciting. I wasn't sure if I was learning any damn thing, but I was watching things that was entertaining me a great deal. It was family entertainment. They had drama. Didn't occur to me that characters that you get intense with, that you identify with these guys and become attached to them, well, they die. To a kid back then, it's like, doesn't ring a bell. Doesn't have the context. Yet. Decades later, after he's seen so much of it, watch the show one more time and then get the emotional impact of it. But it's not just the emotional impact of seeing characters pass away. Oh, no. It's why they passed away. It's for the reasons why they tried to show bravery under the camera. Swamp Fox. People think that was a fictional character, right? But Walt Disney was, as I understood him, as I learned, he was facetious. He was studious. His guy was a researcher. He'd researched a lot of stuff for his shows, including the Swamp Fox. Francis Marion. Nobody knew what Francis Marion was unless we saw something about him. But the South, they knew him. A lot of schools named after this guy. Not after the name of Swamp Fox, but of Francis Marion. Because of what he did in the Revolutionary War against the British when they were trying to cut off the colonies, split them in half, take away the colonials' power. And every time I'm researching this stuff, I'm constantly comparing notes in the back of my head of today's situation that we've got voted into office, of how worse things look, and how I have to keep comparing what all of it means. There's always some relevant meaning why all this is happening here. In the Revolutionary War, we were going against a king in another country who a lot of people escaped from. And he wanted to consolidate his power more and more. Why not control all the 13 colonies? We had a long, bloody revolution. Marion was one of those guys that helped out in the revolution. But you hardly ever saw anything about him throughout the ages, except maybe on Walt Disney's Swamp Fox show, and I found it on YouTube a long time ago. And I'm watching the series again, even though it's several of them, but it's still to me essence of what colonialism was like back then. Why they did what they did. Independence, freedom, liberty, laws, regulations, things that made sense to them. Instead of having a redcoat telling you everything else and he's going to do what he's going to do and he's going to be a bully. This is the reason why I keep looking at the show and thinking, we elected a king. We didn't elect a bully. Actually, we did elect a bully. A bully is a king, and a king is a bully. This is the synonymous thing of it. Synchronist, aren't they? Synchronizing. But if they get enough bloody nose, they usually back up unless they get an army right behind them to back up their bloody nose. And it takes the smaller people to fight back harder. But the colonials did. We had George Washington. We had Gates. We had other generals in the colonial army. But Marion was originally South Carolinian, but he was also a patriot. And he became a hero of militia. I watched the show. I'm still watching more of it. Now, I know that when Mel Gibson did the movie Patriot, it was supposed to be on the basis of the character, of the real character of Francis Marion. A quiet commander turned into a hellion for Cornwallis. And he became a general. What they were showing the personal tragedies of what he had endured, loss of family, which makes the war even that much more personal. When you lose people in combat, doesn't matter which war it is, it makes everything personal and hard to deal with. I was fortunate enough in my own lifetime. I didn't have uncles die, but they were injured in more ways than one. My brother went to a war, he came back injured. But he was still in one piece, physically, mentally, forget it. But he didn't die of combat. Maybe things after combat that got to him. But he wasn't buried, and he wasn't interned. He didn't have a gravestone or anything else like that one. Nothing. If you happen to see anything crawling around or any kind of flickering, don't freak about it. It's still bugware I got in this bedroom, in the entire apartment. So don't freak out about it, guys. And watching these colonial pictures, ancient as they are, it was something I grew up under to understand what colonialism was all about, why we fought. It's not how. It's the meaning, it's the intention. It's everything else tied into it. That it makes me patriotic enough to to put up a flag when the weekend comes. July 4th is coming up on a Saturday in a couple of weeks. And maybe I'll have a few things wearing patriotism if I'm ready for it. But I want to celebrate when the start of the country began. I wanted to celebrate the 1776 spirit. I want to celebrate the colonials versus the Tories. The Tories were the sympathetic colonists who had strong allegiance to England. Me, I'm a colonist. my ancestors came over. And from what I gathered in the writings of material from the family, and also stories that I heard, that I had connections to the independence, actually to the Declaration of Independence and to the U.S. Constitution. A signer from Pennsylvania, Robert Morris. Somewhere in my family history, I've got connections with these guys. And that's what makes it harder for me to understand why I would have to celebrate in the oldest traditions I could try to find for my own family. Not just fireworks, but understanding the spirit of America. I got a gas bag that's taking everything else away, including the meaning and ripping away the colors of the red, white, and blue. He thinks it's his to mutilate and damage, but I'll tell you something. He didn't have ancestors grow up in this country. But also, I didn't have ancestors taken from other countries by force to be slave labor in another country. I didn't have that. Nor did I have any relatives that I remember, that I can recall, and also I researched, and I couldn't find anything just yet. Whether or not I've actually had people who were frowned upon, pissed on, because they were different. And we've had different countries, different places coming over to America, again frowned upon, and getting stigmatized, and worse, being used as gutter trash, insinuated as being gutter trash, where your birthright's going to be taken away because we got the court system so screwed up right now. I don't know if the Supreme Court will actually support birthright citizenship. And if they do, maybe the naturalized do have a chance of still maintaining a foothold in our country, as they should. They're going through the system. They should not get yanked out, tossed out because of prejudice and bigotry and hatred. That's the thing that usually keeps pissing me off about this country, but that is one of the darker natures of the United States of America. It's not the light that we have to keep showing, guys. We also have to keep understanding the cockroaches that we bred. We're not a perfect country. We're not supposed to be a perfect country. Except in thought and idea and ideology, we can. And it's individualized. It's pluralized. It's a pluralistic country we wanted originally. But unfortunately, people want it so narrow, it's not even funny. I kept trying to say in some of my other videos that you remember the album cover of Pink Floyd. Look at it in the internet, guys. Dark Side of the Moon. You got the black background. And you got this image of a pyramid. You got light going into one portion of the top area of the pyramid. It comes out a spectrum on the other side. If you want to see a real scientific thing, you look at rainbows. You look at rainbows that we have all the time, science. Water refraction. Light goes through the water, and the images of light is broken into many components that you see the spectrum. That's what we are, a spectrum. But some people don't want it. They don't like it. I got news from these assholes. Bite it. Bite it, Tory. I'm not a Trump lover. I don't believe in the MAGA crap. But because we're a pluralistic society, I do believe in the U.S. Constitution. If they got a right to say something, they've got to say something about it. There's also the movie of the American president, Michael Douglas. The speech is famous. The speech is out there on the internet. I've got clips of it on YouTube. You find a movie, watch it. Just get past the Annette Bening and Douglas things. I mean, it's nice, but it's also the political stuff that you don't have to get to till you get to the meat of it. I mean, there are portions when you have this political crap looking at the president's girlfriend and saying, "Oh, now we got something to go against the president here. Now we've got something to go against him." Remind yourself, guys. Remind yourself constantly when you're watching this movie. Watch the whole damn thing, actually. Even when you have the romance going on. Because even in a romantic part, they're still talking about the politics happening these days. And at the end, when Douglas does that speech as the president, closer attention to that. Then understand it. Go it over through your head many times. This is the basis of what we're dealing with in our country. If you guys can't get this one, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you guys. That being said,